And a Fox News alert is the 13-year-old boy accused in the murder of a New York City college student is back in court today. David Lee Miller was reporting on this earlier. The NYPD says Tessa Majors was stabbed to death while walking in Upper Manhattan Park. Police think there are as many as 3 suspects who were involved. Criminal defense attorney Bob Bianchi is here. Wow, this case has taken so many twists and turns. At one point, the 13-year-old said, well, I gave the knife to somebody else. It was the 14-year-old. The 14-year-old was on the run. The police arrest him finally, and then the 14-year-old's out of jail now. How do we follow this?
Yeah, it's a strange thing. From a prosecutorial standpoint, from when I was doing homicide prosecutors, this is the only thing that I could read in the tea leaves. The 13-year-old gives a very detailed confession, which will be argued today as to whether or not that statement can be admissible. He gives information with respect to these other 2 teens, one of which they bring into the police station, question him, and then they release him. So I can only tell you from having been in those interviews myself personally, if he had given information that they felt was credible, he probably would have been arrested.
When you say he, if the 14-year-old, what about, they have the 13-year-old saying that's the guy, though.
Yeah, this is what's strange about it. So that could mean that the 13-year-old statement is not completely accurate, which is bad for prosecutors. Prosecutors need that 13-year-old right now because they have no other evidence. Somewhere down the line, they need to make a deal with the 13-year-old to testify against the other 2.
Conceivably, if his confession is kept in, he gets a worse deal than if his confession is thrown out. Then if it's thrown out, his defense lawyers have a lot more leverage after today.
Yeah, and the weird physics of this case, though, if the confession goes in, he becomes a cooperating witness. The prosecutors need to be able to use his confession. They need to use him to be able to tell the story because they don't believe he's the stabber. They believe he went there to rob, he picked up the knife, he gave it to the kid. The other 14-year-old stabbed her because she bit his finger during the course of this incident. So they need that 13-year-old unless they can develop some really significant independent evidence, which right now it doesn't seem like they have.
And in the meantime, as we sit there, the family of Tessa Majors mourns her death. Brings up an interesting point as we look at how the police investigated this. There's a lot of discussions that the beginning of this investigation was handled pretty sloppily by the NYPD. Hark back to the Central Park 5, some other issues. As a former prosecutor, do you read this was done by the book?
Listen, I have been involved in so many homicide investigations where the media was printing certain things that I just knew were absolutely not accurate. But by the same token, as prosecutors and police, we try to keep that information tight because we're in the middle of an investigation. So I really can't say right now whether they botched the investigation. They've gotten videotapes. They've gotten somebody to give a statement. They brought in the other person who's a potential suspect. So I can't really say right now.
It's an interesting point, and that is that everybody could be out there attacking them and saying they've done a terrible job, and it turns out they're really just holding their cards with something. That's a very good point. On to this, which is a murder investigation and saga that has lasted years, which is Robert Durst, who is a real estate developer and the subject of an HBO show. Take a watch of a clip of the show and see if it jogs your memory.
So what do you think about this note? I mean, does this note mean anything to you?
I mean, that's her address, block letters of somebody who's hiding their signature. And they spelled Beverly wrong.
Can you think of a reason why somebody might write a note like that?
I can't imagine. Can't imagine.
All right, he can't imagine why somebody would write a note like that in the HBO special. That is the note that told police where the body of this murder victim was. And now his lawyer says he did write the note.
Profound change of course. As a defense lawyer, or as a prosecutor even, I'm trying to figure out why they would have said that he wrote that note. Now, the judge admitted handwriting experts, but I can tell you, handwriting experts, especially when you're dealing with printing, they're easy to discredit. What has been done now is now they've admitted that they've put Durst at the location where all the time he said, I was nowhere near that, especially with the misspelling of the word Beverly. And right in the middle of that Jinx interview, the guy basically, Durst says, the person who wrote it had to be the murderer. Now they're saying, I wrote it. They're admitting it. Leland, for the life of me, when I read it, unless the client is forcing you to do something that as a lawyer you're giving them advice not to do, I can't imagine why they're going to do this because the prosecutors are going to get that out. It puts Durst there. And don't forget, Susan Berman was about to speak to law enforcement about the murder of his wife in a couple of days. So you have motive, means, and now opportunity that's been presented. And in addition to that, you have to now say as a defense lawyer in court, my client's a liar.
This has been going on for a long time. As you noted, the wife, Durst's first wife, was found in 1982. That's 37 years ago, because I'm 37. And Berman was shot now 19 years ago, as we put up the pictures of this victim. These are two women's murders who have effectively gone unsolved and the killer not brought to justice. Durst goes on trial. Is that going to change?
Is it going to change in terms of what's going to happen to him? He's going to, in my mind, be convicted. Don't forget, after he was confronted in the Jinx with the envelopes that showed Beverly spelled wrong, he goes on a hot mic into the bathroom and he says, "You're caught." This is what he's saying on the mic. What the hell did I do? Killed them all, of course.
And conceivably, that's going to be admissible.
Absolutely. Definitely.
All right, we will watch the trial. Bob Bianchi, thank you very much, sir. Appreciate it.
You got it, Leland.
Sandra.